All right, let's look into a thing which I like to call the OKR heartbeat, because if you run OKRs quarterly, it's kind of a quarterly heartbeat. And the question is for you guys, when you work with OKRs, are we good in our speed to define new OKRs? Are we okay? Are we not okay? And what means normal? What means to have a normal time frame in order to set up your new OKR quarter? And I mean the amount of weeks until your new OKRs are set across the organization. Yeah, and to be a bit more precise, is basically the starting point for me would be if the point where you start kind of like reflecting, as an example, your Q1 OKRs or your Q1 cycle, you start to collect bottom-up input on key priorities for Q2. That would be the starting point, and the end point would be really to have something finalized, all locked, all set, all discussed, all aligned in the system. That would be the end point. To my extent, I would say if you need something like 2 to 3 weeks to go from A to B, you are pretty fast. You're very fast. You're really doing very good. Question on quality. So you need to check that whether your quality is not suffering from it. But 2 to 3 weeks is really brilliant, really good. I would say something around 4 to 6 weeks is normal. Absolutely okay, absolutely normal. And if you would be needing more than 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks or even more, something is wrong. Something is really wrong. And it probably also feels a bit painful for you guys, for your team leaders, for your teams to set up new OKR cycles. And we don't want that. It shouldn't be painful. Let's think again around an example. So again, let's spin their heads around this Q1 cycle. So we are at the end of Q1. It's the first week of March. So the last month of Q1 is basically starting. This is the point where we start reflecting our Q1 OKRs, how we've done so far. Probably we know by that point very well what we probably will achieve and what not. And we also start to collect some bottom-up input. If you would be ready with everything around the third week of March, again, you would be super fast. If you would be ready around this second week of April, you're still kind of okay-ish. If you need longer, then something is wrong. So if you finish your Q2 OKRs at the very end of April or even in May, you're already missing out a month of Q2, and that's not okay. And you might want to ask yourself, okay, but he's telling us 4 to 6 weeks is okay. That means that we run into Q2 already until we have everything finalized. Yes, I tell you that, although I'm German, none of my clients really is so strict, even if they are Germans, to start the new cycle exactly on the first day of a quarter. I've never experienced that. And I think it's totally okay. I mean, I rather have fruitful alignment discussions a bit longer, but then there should be a hard deadline, something like the 10th of the first month, or to an extreme, the 15th of the first month, until everything should be finalized and locked in the system. But to my extent, it must not necessarily be the first one. Yeah? Okay. I hope that gives you a bit of a feeling on where you are. Yeah. And let's look into the heartbeat, and meaning what's happening when during a quarter and how to kick it off, basically. Also there, I have to state again that there is not the one and only process everyone is following and using, but I can tell you that this heartbeat works and it supports the main OKR principles, mainly including real bottom-up input, which I really am a big fan of. And the first step would be exactly that team leads collect input from their team members. And this is happening in parallel across all hierarchy levels. And this input always includes 2 layers only and not more. So it's not jumping over layers, meaning if I'm the CEO, I want to collect input from my management round for the next company OKRs. If I'm running a 5-person marketing team, I'm asking my 5 team members for their view on things for the next OKR cycle. And it's also about asking the question right, sorry, because I don't want to collect a kind of Christmas wish list from everybody. It should be something focused, and I like this question to have a kind of perspective change in there. And the question is for me, if you would be me, what would be your top 3 things for next quarter? So if I'm the CEO, if you would be the CEO, what would be the top 3 things for the next quarter? And that's really helpful input from my team members. And that also will bring in the right level of input, which is helpful. And because a big bucket list of wish lists is not really helpful, it's just adding a lot of complexity, in my opinion. Now the next step is basically that the exec round is about to define their next high-level company OKRs, and keep in mind that this group of people already collected input from their team members. So it's okay, in my opinion, to start with company OKRs because bottom-up input is included in there already, right? Basically these quarterly company OKRs cuts your yearly strategy into the priorities which matter most in the next 3 months. This is also a super helpful orientation for your teams to create their quarterly OKRs. Sometimes I have companies who only have annual OKRs on company level, and then they go quarterly to team level. And if you interview team managers, they say, wow, it's a bit hard sometimes to go from annual company to quarterly team. So it's very good to have these, in my opinion, to have a quarterly direction from the company perspective. Yeah. And then I find it really strong and important to broadcast these quarterly company OKRs and explain how they refer to our yearly strategy or to our strategic pillars we have out there, because words are so much stronger than just granting access to a document or just bringing something online in a system. And usually this is something short and spot on, and you can handle it best as part of your town hall meeting or a company-wide like 15-minute webcast. Yeah? And make sure after this session, this broadcast session, you open up a kind of Q&A channel because your employees will translate that into their viewpoint and think, okay, what does it mean actually for us now in the team? So make sure you use your team meetings, your sure fixes to answer questions from your team, because then you make sure that they understand things right, and then the quality of their OKRs will be better as well. Next step is basically that with that orientation from company OKRs and with the input you have collected from your team, you should now be able to create all other OKRs out there on team level, or if you go down on individual level. And this happens basically in parallel across the whole organization, across all layers. And it should contain definitely some revisions. So the goal is actually not to finalize your OKR set right away. The goal is more to have a solid draft ready, which contains everything important, and that you're able to also mark and highlight where you need support from others. So where are the dependencies? Where are alignment needs which have to be discussed? That's super important, because the next step is then to conduct an alignment meeting or a whole alignment week across all different teams. It really depends on the size of your organization. And as your OKR drafts should be transparent and accessible already, peers are able to dive into these topics and also can definitely have a solid discussion around these dependencies and alignment needs. Basically, after this alignment week, we come to a point that we have a consensus towards your peers when there are dependencies, but also towards your manager. I want managers not to sign things off formally. That's not the sake of having that step number 7 there. But I want to have, I see OKRs as basically, we need to bring together always 2 viewpoints. The viewpoints from the team, from the bottom, and the viewpoint from the top, from the manager. And we need to match these viewpoints quarter by quarter by quarter. And that's why I definitely think that managers should be having an eye and should be giving some feedback on a team manager's OKRs or a direct report from him. Yeah. Basically then we are able to kick things off, right? And from there we are basically going into our weekly routines. During the quarter, make sure that you're updating progress, you're updating confidence levels within your weekly or bi-weekly meeting routines. By doing that, actually, you make sure that you don't need to conduct a big event around a final evaluation of OKRs, because if you make sure that everyone is about to talk about OKRs every week, you pretty know at a certain time which OKRs you will be accomplishing and what probably not. So really try to concentrate more on the learnings for the next quarter and repeat the steps quarter by quarter by quarter. But I think it's not so necessary to make a big event around a closing of a cycle. Yeah. All right. So let me give you some recommendations for you to look at and compare also to your current setup, because all this actually now is connected directly to how fast or to how slow, if you do things right, wrong, your definition process is, right? So first point I want to tell you is that the clearer your own vision and strategy is out there for everybody, also team members, the more spot on all OKRs will be. Yeah. And that's very often a weak point out there, that actually teams or team members are basically drafting OKRs a bit out of the blue, a bit more just looking on what's on their desk without orienting themselves towards the strategy or the visionary direction. And this is what we want. This is what we need to have. So take your time and make sure you are moderating, explaining very often, at least once a quarter, how things are connected to the very top. And what does it mean in terms of your strategy, where you are right now, why you have chosen these company OKRs, and then again connect to your vision. So repeat until everybody is really completely buying into this whole thing. That's so important. Second comment is it's not supposed to be a list of everything. Yeah. Really try to limit the number of OKRs out there. Define OKRs only based on things which make a big difference for the next quarter. And if you feel that some teams having a hard time in accomplishing that or achieving that because they still try to build a list of everything. Tell them, okay, next quarter, I want you to have only 3 OKRs, not more. Yeah. That's a good, I mean, it's hard, it's even harder for them, but they need to focus more. They need to focus on the things which make a difference, because then they understand that there are probably a lot of long-term KPIs out there which are important indeed. We don't want to eliminate them, but they are more placed on the strategic layer. It's more long-term KPIs for the year, but we want to concentrate on the right things within this quarter in order to stimulate these part of these KPIs positively in the long term. Yeah. So try to squeeze it down to the things which really matter. Then, in my opinion, a big pain point out there very often is that you guys are not doing really well within your weekly OKR check-ins. Because I think the more touch points you have with OKRs, the more your team is following up on achievement level or change in confidence level. The more you talk about OKRs during the quarter, the faster will be your definition process in the end, because it's so easier to do a reflection on the last quarter, to be spot on in terms of what went wrong and why did it not work as expected, what are the learnings from it. So this is really paying directly into the speed of your whole definition process. If you're not talking so much about OKRs during the quarter, you need a much longer period of time in order to bring everything back into people's mind and remind everybody about what happened actually, why did it happen. So keep the pace, keep the focus, and develop a certain habit and discipline behind it. Super important. Then something, that's an important one. Something I experience sometimes from companies who say, well, I think our definition process is too slow. Let's do the following. Let's try to cut off bottom-up input, because that's just eating up a lot of time. Let's make sure we do our company OKRs in time, and they are the reference for everything else. Think about it. Is that the initial idea of OKRs? Probably not, because if you do that, you can also go back to MBOs. It's no difference. You tell your teams, your people, about where to derive their OKRs from. You're cutting off bottom-up input completely. This is not meant to be OKRs, so don't do that. Don't try to cut off bottom-up input. Rather ask the right question. If you would be me as your manager, what would be the 3 things which matter in the next quarter? That's a super help. That should be not time consuming. That should be very helpful for you in order to compile your own OKRs. All right. And I think also a good exercise is every quarter to determine kind of like the 3 key learnings from last quarter per team, in order not to forget about improving quarter by quarter by quarter. You can also give that as a kind of homework towards your team, saying, okay, next team meeting, please send me your idea of the 3 key learnings from this particular quarter. Again, that is basically directly connected to the speed of your definition process, because you can directly reflect on the things you want to improve and try to avoid it in the next time or do it better in the next quarter.